Hello, my little copers, and happy Intellectual Tuesday. I've been on a bit of a social grind recently, I guess. I don't really know what to call it. Um, Talking about social issues on this channel, I've done more of that recently than not. And honestly, I'm liking it. And it seems that y'all like it as well. That last video, oh my gosh, I got so much support and everything from that. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. And today I'm going to continue that. I'm talking about essentially a way of dealing with mental illness that I have always found really, really interesting. And that is gallows humor. And I'm going to talk about a historical example of using gallows humor and then also how I think it's being used right now. If you don't know what gallows humor is, it's essentially like taking a bad situation that one finds themselves in and then laughing at it. There's a meme that got popular for a while. It was like this dude who's like about to be hung, and he's like, first time to the person next to him. And that's like quintessential gallows humor right there. Anyways, let's get into it. So, a story that I heard in Dan Carlin's Blueprint for Armageddon was in World War One. There was soldiers who were ordered to dig a trench, and essentially, World War One, you had a lot of bodies around that stayed around. Like they weren't able to be picked up from either side just because it was too dangerous to pick up the bodies. So, after time and as the front lines move back and forth, sometimes where you would have to dig a new trench would be where bodies were. And this happened to a contingent of, and I believe they were British soldiers in Dan Carlin's telling of this. And so I'm going to paraphrase that. Essentially what happened is they're digging this new trench and they're like, oh, there's a bit of Bob. Here's Jim. More Bob as they're like digging. And eventually they found like a forearm and like a hand. And so they stuck it up in their little like trench and would like either high five or use it to wave at each other or stuff like that. And that's always really interested me. Obviously I try to put myself in other people's shoes, but that one's hard. That one's hard to put myself in their boots in this case. It's just, to me, it's kind of horrifying. I don't know if I could like dig through all that and be like, hey, Bob, how's it going? But in a way, it reminds me of like absurdism, where like, and to break absurdism down really quick, it's like, hey, life is meaningless. So like defy the meaningless of life by like doing what you want. And in this case, the way I think it relates is like, hey, this is like supposed to be really messed up and sad, but defy that by making a joke out of it. But really because it's a coping method, right? Because if you think about it, these soldiers, and I don't know exactly what year this happened. Let's just say it happened in 1916. Assuming it happened then, you have 2 years of war that they've been through as soldiers, right? I'd probably be willing to bet that this isn't their first time digging a trench and finding bits of Bob and Jim. And as I try to put myself into that position, try to think like the first time it happens, you're probably horrified, right? But is it still as horrifying by the time you've dug up like 30 Bobs and 20 Jims? I don't know. I don't want to know, to be completely honest. That's not something I have any interest in finding out. But in a way, I think it's a form of dealing with trauma, this gallows humor. And that's just why I find it so interesting. Like, people choose to laugh at this stuff. And it's morbid. It really is morbid. But in a way, is there not like some form of, and I don't really know the word to say here. I'm going to say beauty. Call it whatever you want. But I at least think it's interesting that this is a way that human beings have coped, because we saw that in like World War One, right? But gallows humor has not gone away. And just the name itself, gallows, kind of implies an older like word. I mean, we don't really use the word gallows anymore. When I think of gallows, personally, I'm thinking of like the 1700s type stuff, not anytime recently. So, but gallows humor has been around, and it's still around today. The reason I know this is because I've seen like memes online of people who have a mental illness, like say depression, just for an example. And instead of doing the stereotypical sad things you'd see in like a TV show or in a movie. Instead, they're laughing about it online and making jokes about it. And honestly, I mean, if that's what helps in that moment, I mean, go for it. It's not always my like way of dealing with things. Like sometimes I guess I'll like make jokes about whatever sad situation I'm in. But sometimes I'll also just be sad, like hide under the covers and just try not to think about whatever's making me sad and then just be like sad. But yeah, essentially all that I really have to add to the conversation other than like bringing it up is like nothing's new under the sun, right? Like everything's kind of been done. I'm talking about gallows humor in the like right now and how we're seeing this through memes and social media. But it's been different in the past, right? I don't think like the underlying principles of gallows humor, like that way of coping with trauma has changed, but the way to express oneself has changed. Like that's new. And in a way it's like interesting to see the underlying human condition, I guess, of gallows humor continue, but online. And I actually, one thing that I do wonder about, and I don't know if I have an answer, this is kind of just like a theory of mine, is I wonder if there is a social aspect to gallows humor. When you make a joke, typically you aren't making it to yourself, right? Like sometimes we say stuff and we laugh at it like it's funny to us. It's like that one Greek philosopher who was like, the donkey's eating a fig, and then like laughed to death or something. That guy, but outside of cases like that, when you make a joke, it's typically for an audience, right? So I think back to that World War I story where they're digging up and they're like literally digging through bodies. There was probably at some point the first person to make a joke, right? And they made that joke and people around them might have been shocked, right? They're like, what do you mean that we just found a piece of Bob? But as it went on, right, maybe the next time they dug a trench, the second person laughed, and so on and so forth. And I wonder, and I'd like to see how that relates to the online world. Typically where I've seen these jokes is like Reddit, where people are like, I guess, using this gallows humor to cope. So I wonder if like the social nature of just social media in general has anything to do with that, like how you can like things, I guess, online, and you can like comment and stuff too. So I would be interested to see if there was anything more on the social aspect of that in terms of like, are people doing it like for coping, like just for themselves and like just to make a funny joke for themselves, or are they doing it for other people? And something else, I guess, kind of to piggyback off of that is like, how many people is gallows humor helping? Because I don't think that it's inherently bad. Like, I think on the surface, it can be morbid, right? To talk about something like a war and digging up bodies, or like, even like, think about it, like talking about like looking really deep into yourself. And I'm talking like really looking at yourself in the mirror and digging deep and learning about yourself in that way, and learning that, man, maybe I do have a mental illness. Taking that, but then like being able to make like gallows humor out of that. I wonder if people's experiences there have actually helped other people cope with their experiences. Because in a way, maybe gallows humor could be a group coping mechanism. Like everyone that's going through either digging up bodies or have depression or on some subreddit, maybe in a way it's that shared experience that is helping people cope. And maybe in a way it's like we could all be sad about this, or we could make jokes about it and spit in the face of our current situation. So that's just about all I have to say. I think it's interesting. It's always interested me, and I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts about this. So until next time, I hope that you have a wonderful Intellectual Tuesday, and that wherever you are, you be safe and you take care. So until next time, take care. Bye-bye.